Book of Joshua tonight. Chapter 11, we see the wars, the battles. This is a continuation when Joshua and led the children in to the land of Canaan, and the wars, the battles, the conquering of the land is continuing now. It's going on. I think you say it lasted 5 years of fighting against those different nations and conquering them and driving them out. Of course, we know as we read on and get to the book of Judges, we see it wasn't too long till Israel was back in bondage, and because of their lack of faith, not trusting the Lord and trusting God. I seen, and I thought it was a joke at first, but I reckon it's true. They took a cardboard cutout and put a picture of old Khomeini on it, and them people over there just worshiping and weeping I mean, how sad. Sad. It's sad to worship a man anyways, a man that's alive, whether it's the Pope or Khomeini or whatever, but to worship just an image of him and weep and wail, and you know how that was the same kind of mindset of all these nations that God warned. That's they were to wipe out everybody in every tribe they come to. They were to wipe them out completely and destroy. They only allowed what God told them they could keep, and it was for their good. And we see that, we can see that in our own lives. If we're not careful, we can start letting stuff in, letting our guard down, and it influences us, and we don't want to get rid of some things that comes in our lives, and we want to try to hang on to some things, but we need to just turn them loose completely. And this you can see over and over and over in Israel's history. That's what happened to them, was they got influenced by these false gods of these other nations, and they doubted him, doubt God, and stuff. And I think about that, and I thought, well, what about my life? Because they seen God do mighty works, and yet they doubted him. But I've seen him do mighty works in my life, and there's times when I doubt him, Miss Bertha, and I've doubted and say, well, I don't. And of course, I'm glad it don't stop him. He still does what's right and what's good for us. But we see Joshua is trying to do what's right as far as what God is leading them to do. And but it's just when you think about the whole book of Joshua is the book of conquering and war. That's what it is. It's a continuation. Once they got to the Jordan River, the boundary of Canaan, then God had to take Moses on because he could not go in. And so the mantle fell upon Joshua, and from that time forward, it was just a continual battle from city to city, country to country, and to conquer it. And how many died? Thousands upon thousands that died, so that land would be conquered for them. And it is, and it doesn't matter the theologians and the scholars and this and that or whoever as I said, the Tucker Carlsons and the others who say that that land is the Palestinians and this and that. God chose Abraham. And God made a covenant with Abraham. And God made a people that were made of him a people that were not a people. And he gave unto them a land. And that is his promise to them. And if God break that promise, then he also, through his Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, he made a people that was not a people, us, Christians, and promised us an eternal home in heaven one day. And if he could break that covenant with Israel, he could break the covenant with us. And he's not broke that covenant. And Israel has failed. Yes, they have. And they've not received. And but one day they will. One day they will. But I think about how many thousands died because they were trying to do what was right inside of God, what God told them to do, so that the nation itself could grow. And then that makes me think of our nation and think of the wars that our country has fought, and think about those men and women who died in the wars, and especially the last 50, 75, 100 years, and now see our country. This is not what they died for. This is not what they went and fought and suffered like they did in those wars for this that we see today. It is not. And how sad. And that was the same way with because of how the people of Israel turned their hearts away from following God. And it's the same way with America. We've turned our hearts as a people. We've turned our hearts away from following God. People don't even know what the truth is anymore. And there's so many untold millions in this country claim the name of Christ, and yet they have no idea what they're even talking about. They don't even know what salvation, they don't even know what being born again is. And how sad is that, to claim the name and yet not even know the way, not even know the gospel. And I think God said there in I think it's in, wasn't in Isaiah, but anyway, he said there would come a time when there'd be a famine, not of bread, but a famine of the hearing of the word. And that's where we're at today in America. There is a famine of the hearing of the word. And if God could not continue to bless and strengthen and help Israel, then how much less can he help and strengthen and bless? I mean, yeah, we're blessed, but how much, with a nation that anything coming and going is promoted now, and ungodly against God. And that's we can see the anytime you see that name, and I think it may be, maybe we've seen it last week, but of course Baal or Baal was a false god, but that Moloch or Moloch is a transgender god from thousands and thousands of years ago. It was a woman, a goddess, but yet she could be a man. And you see that all through the Old Testament, serving Moloch. And that is that same God that is taken over in this country. They don't even bat an eye, most people don't anymore, about this transgender thing. And it's so ungodly and unholy. And it's going to be judged. It's already judged. But here in chapter 11 we see, it says the final conquest of Canaan. And it says, come to pass when Jabin, king of Hazor, had heard those things, that he sent to Joab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Akshaph, and to the kings that were on the north of the mountains, and of the plains south of Chinneroth, and in the valley, and in the borders of Dor on the west. So these are on the west and the north, and you can picture when they crossed there at Jericho, they were sort of in the south and to the east, and now they're moving up to the west and to the north, and taking those countries. Now the mountains of the north, and that is where the giants. There was a tribe of giants. There were giants in the mountains there, and I say again tonight, I have no problem with giants. Giants is all through the Old Testament there was, and of course they're eventually wiped out. But it was even David killed Goliath, and then David's mighty men killed his brother, I think, or Goliath's brother, and later his daddy, I think is the way it was. But anyway, and Goliath was he was just a little bit under 10 foot tall. So that's pretty good sized feller. But anyway, it says here in verse 3, and to the Canaanite on the east and on the west, and to the Amorite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Jebusite in the mountains, and to the Hivite under Hermon in the land of Mizpah. The Jebusites, if you turn back, I didn't, in chapter 10, verse 1, where we were at last week, it talks about the Jebusites, talks about Jerusalem there, and it says in verse 1 there, it said, now it come to pass when Adoni-Zedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, how the inhabitants of Gibeon made peace with Israel and were among them. And that Jerusalem, it said the first mention of Jerusalem, this is the first mention of Jerusalem by this name in the Bible. It's mentioned as Salem in Genesis 14:18. It was called Jebusi in Joshua 18:28, and Jebus in Judges 19:10-11. Thus the name Jebusites, Jebusites, to its inhabitants. The psalmist sang of this city as the perfection of beauty in Psalms 50:2. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth, Psalms 48:2. It's called the city of God, Psalms 46:4. And the holy city in Nehemiah 11:1 has a long history, still has a great future in store. About the future restoration of Israel, we read, they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. They shall be my people, and I will be their God, Zechariah 8:8. And the Bible closes with one description of the New Jerusalem, Revelation 21 and through 22. And so we need not forget, and Jerusalem is belongs to the Jews, but here at that time it was Jebusites who lived there, and but it is just like the land over there. It belongs to the Jews, and of course we know the Muslims have their mosque built there on the Temple Mount. They've, I know I've told you before, but that is their trademark. Just a couple of years, as a matter of fact, the new mayor of New York City, his uncle was one of the hijacked terrorists that blowed up the Twin Towers, and I mean they're all just interlaced. But one of the Muslim shaman a couple of years after the trade towers, he filed for a permit to build a mosque on top of on that site. And that's the way they do wherever they go and conquer. That's a sign that they're conquering, is what that is. And that's why you see that in Jerusalem, but it won't be there. It won't be there forever, and the time is coming. But anyway, the Jebusites were the people who lived, and as we just read here, they were the ones who had founded this city. You know, I think I'll get off on something else here, but I'll think about a message I heard years ago and at one of the preacher fellowships, and I still enjoy thinking about it. You know, like music, of course, the music come from Satan is the author. Satan is the father of music. That's you read in Ezekiel 28, chapter 28, and Isaiah 14. And it talks about his pipes. He was given the gift of music, of song. And when you go back and read the lineage of Seth, and you read the lineage of Canaan, or Cain, you have Jubal, and he was a musician, if you will. But how that the preacher was preaching about how God took things and used them and God said, I'll take some of that and use that for my glory, the music. But the greatest one, or the best one I liked, was when he said, he was talking about David and how Goliath was there sharpening that sword, and all them soldiers of Israel was in their tents a-trembling. And said God told Goliath, said, turn that over and sharpen the other edge of it a little bit. Got a young man going to take your head off with it in the morning. And God said, I'll take that. And that's what he did, didn't he? David cut Goliath's head off with his own sword. And that's the same way here. God took that city, it was called Salem, City of Peace, and God took it for his glory. It's called Jerusalem, and it's God's. You know, I just got through saying it's Israel, but it's not. The Bible said right here that it's God's. It's God's city. And so it doesn't matter what that bunch they're defiling it over today is what they're doing there with that Temple Mount. They're defiling. But one day it's going to be cleansed. The one's coming who's going to cleanse it, and that's the Lord Jesus Christ. But we see here in in verse 4, it says, and they went out, they and all their host with them, much people, even as the sand is up on the seashore, in multitude, with horses and chariots, very many. Now in that day, if you had a cavalry, then you had an edge in battle. But if you had chariots, you had even a stronger, a better, because you could have one driving and one or two or three in that chariot, spearing, sword, whacking, or shooting arrows or whatever. And so it was like armor. It was like having tanks in our day. So when you had those chariots, and they could just I think it was Jezebel, wasn't it? That I know the dogs ate her, but didn't they run somewhere in the Word? They run the chariots over them, break her bones. They'd run the chariots back and forth across them, and that's how and so Israel has no chariots. As a matter of fact, or they don't at this time, anyways. And so here's this huge, all these armies together as the number of the seashore, as the sand, it says. And they also have chariots too. So, Paul, be a time you'd really like to have you a few of those AKs or ARs with a few extra clips. But anyway, they didn't need it. Here they come. And it says In verse 5, and when all these kings were met, excuse me, were meet together, they come pitched at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And the Lord said unto Joshua, be not afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time I will deliver them all, or I will deliver up all slain before Israel. Excuse me. And thou shalt halt their horses and burn their chariots with fire. And so the halt means hamstring. To hamstring the horses. They'd be unfit for military service, but they could still be used to farm with. They just couldn't run and pull a chariot anymore. And up there in verse 1, at Jabin, his name means wise or intelligent. And it says it seems to have been an official title of the king of Hazor. There's another king of the same name or title in Judges 4:2. But anyway, it says in verse 7, so Joshua came and all the people of war with him against them by the waters of Merom suddenly, and they fell upon them. And the Lord delivered them into the hand of Israel, who smote them and chased them unto Great Zidon and unto Maim, and unto the valley of Mizpah eastward, and they smote them until they left them none remaining. And Zidon was a very old city named after the first sons of Canaan. And Canaan was Noah's grandson. He was the son of Jephthah and I'd have to go look. He wasn't Jephthah's son. He was the son of Noah's son, who when Noah got drunk and was laying in his tent, he looked upon him and said, Cush? Not Cush. Anyway, he looked upon him, and so he cursed, Noah cursed Canaan. He couldn't curse his son because God had already blessed him. God can't curse what he's already blessed. So he couldn't curse Noah's son, but he could his grandson, Canaan. And that's who founded this city. And that's that lineage. And it's so funny, isn't it, that all these, we're in a time when everybody wants to be something different. You know, I'm this, and I'm Native American, I'm African American, I'm whatever. But we all come from the three sons of Noah. And we all come from Noah, who come from Adam, who come from God. So we're all, it doesn't matter. The thing is, we all have a soul, no matter what our color, or what our race, or whatever. And so here we see these people. I can't remember the other one. It's good when you go and look and go back and read that in Genesis when Noah. It talks about Noah's three sons and what part of the earth that they went to. I seen where they said that humans actually began in Africa. I don't know, so many million years ago. No. Humans begin with Adam and Eve, and we come down, 8 souls on an ark, and the Bible said that it rested on Mount Ararat, somewhere around Turkey, and that right there at Iraq, that's where Mesopotamia, the river there, Euphrates River and all that, and that's where from there spread out across the earth at Tower of Babel. And so from there they went to Africa, to cross into Europe, up through Russia and across the Bering Strait into North America and down, or on boats across to. We're all kin. We're all we all come from the same place. And so it was not millions of years ago, some monkey thing that they say they found. And this is, what was it, Lucy? I believe that one was. They called her Lucy. She was so many millions years old, and here's what she looked like. Well, she was a monkey. So, well, there's something wrong there. Was that, anyway, ain't getting into all that stupidity. We gotta, it's everything, just the whole problem with this nation and this world and society and everything is because we do not believe this King James Bible. Because it takes care, God's word takes care of everything if we just believe it. If folk would just believe it, but everybody's got a better way and a better idea and a better this and a better that, and everybody's smarter than God. And what a mess. And he says in verse verse 9, and Joshua did unto them as the Lord bade him. He hauled their horses and burnt their chariots with fire. Well, don't you know, I was reading today about Saul, King Saul, and how I'm getting all the way off, but that's okay. God told him through Samuel to go up and completely destroy Agag and all the people. All the animals, all the people, everything. And Saul and the people went up and destroyed, but he saved the king. They brought back the best sheep, the best cattle, and all that. They said, we're going to offer it to God for an offering. Completely disobeyed God. And Samuel told him, that you've disobeyed God. And he said, I've done exactly what God said for me to do. And how sad is that? And I was thinking of that when I was reading here about Joshua. Because don't you know there was some beautiful horses that they captured and some beautiful chariots, no doubt. Probably some of them had a lot of gold and a lot of fancy woodwork and things like that. And don't you know you'd be tempted? Of course you would, especially with the horses, pretty horses like that. I see those, I remember we'd go to when it was the Dixie Stampede before Dolly got all proper and woke, changed it from that to the Dolly Stampede because didn't want to offend anybody. But the guy would come out on this big old horse and it had that big long tail and big long, boy, it was a beautiful, I don't know much about horses, but I know it was a beautiful horse, Brother Claude. And if you were Joshua, and no doubt they had horses that would put that one to shame as kings and stuff that day, it's like, you would be tempted to say, hey, I'm just not going to do that to this horse. I'm sure the Lord would understand, but he didn't. Now Saul did, but Joshua did not. Joshua done exactly what the Lord said to do, and burnt their chariots and smote the kings. It goes on and says there, and Joshua, verse 10, and Joshua at that time turned back and took Hazor and smote the king thereof with the sword, for Hazor before time was the head of all those kingdoms. And they smote all the souls that were therein with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying them. There was not any left to breathe, and he burnt Hazor with fire. And all the cities of those kings and all the kings of them did Joshua take and smote them with the edge of the sword, and he utterly destroyed them, as Moses, the servant of the Lord, commanded. But as for the cities that stood still in their strength, Israel burnt none of them, save Hazor only. That did Joshua burn. And all the spoil of those cities and the cattle the children of Israel took for a prey unto themselves. But every man they smote with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, neither they left any to breathe. As the Lord commanded Moses his servant, so did Moses command Joshua, and so did Joshua. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord commanded Moses. Now, ain't that's you know, you hear of faith and then you hear of great faith. To me, Joshua would be great faith. You know, because the Lord told Moses to do it, which was great faith. And Moses did things, right? But then the Lord told Moses, and Moses told Joshua. And so Joshua not only believed God, but he believed that God had told Moses to do those things, right? You know, you see, take Joshua's faith right here and give it to Eve, right? Because God didn't tell Eve not to eat of the tree. He told Adam. And Adam in turn told Eve. And we know that he did because she tells the devil, right? She's telling him, we're not, but she had to it, of course, said we're not to touch it and all that. But what if she'd had the faith of Joshua to believe that what Adam was telling her was exactly what God said? And then apply that to ourselves. That whether it's a preacher or whether it's a teacher or whether it's somebody witnessing to us or whatever, to take that faith and believe exactly what they're telling us, exactly what they're preaching or exactly what they're reading to us, and apply that faith that, hey, that's coming straight from God through that person, right? Anyway, I just like this here. And it says, so Joshua took all the land, the hills, all the south country, all the land of Goshen, and the valley, and the plain, and the mountain of Israel, and the valley of the same, even the mount of Halak that goeth up to Seir, even unto Baal God, in the valley of Lebanon, under Mount Hermon, and all their kings he took and smote them and slew them. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings. And I got a note here, it says the war of Joshua took about 5 or 6 years, and this can be reckoned by the age of Caleb, who was 85 when he received his inheritance. He was 40 when he came out of Egypt, and he spent about 40 years in the wilderness. He must therefore have been about 80 when the Israelites entered the land, which leaves 5 years for the period of fighting. So we see he's still fighting too. He's 85 years old and still fighting. And great day. Paul thought he was going to have to help me up off the ground out there this morning when I was down on my knees under the sun. I was like a 100-year-old man trying to get up. And Claude, he just bounces around, and on a great day. I've outaged Claude. But anyway, he says in verse 19, there was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel, save the Havites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. All other they took in battle. For it was of the Lord to harden their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle, that he might destroy them utterly, and that they might have no favor, but that he might destroy them, as the Lord commanded Moses. And I like that. You know, the Lord is the one who brings things about. This over here, the Iranian thing, 47 years of wickedness and sending terrorism all over the world and stuff, and all this is everything. this is God's doing. It is, whether folk want to acknowledge it or not. This is God's doing. He is the one. I say so many times, and I know y'all heard me say it, and y'all probably got tired of hearing me say it. But I love reading about the history of this nation and the wars and things like that, and see how, were it not for God, there's so many times that just a little bit of thing can make such a difference. And were it not, beyond a shadow of doubt, it's God. It's God that just does everything for His purpose, His will, and it's always good. And we can see, and the devil may inspire people to do things, but God is doing things for His glory, His honor, and just to see how close this world was to being split up between the Japanese and the Germans, the Nazis, was, it was very close. It was, were it not for God. In the same way, here, it's God who hardened their hearts and brought them down so that He could destroy them. And it was His doing. It's God done that. And He still works that. He's still working that way today. And, Pharaoh there with Moses, and how God hardened his heart so that he could get glory, so that people could look and see and say, how many times just here in Joshua, the people of Jericho and the other people talked about how they had heard about how Israel's God how He had dealt with the Egyptians and the miracles and the wonders He had done there. You think about this nation here and how, have you ever seen those boats that those people come over here on? We talk about the Mayflower and all that up in, Massachusetts or somewhere up that way. But there were boats that come to Virginia 10 years or so before that, before the Mayflower now. That's one that gets recognition, but them boats, you could set 2 or 3 of them right here in this, and yet they cross the Atlantic Ocean. That scares me to death to think about it. I'm scared of water anyhow, but especially them sharks. But anyway, but you think about that and how they were coming. Different reasons, but the main reason folk was freedom of worship. It was the remnant. It was the remnant of the true church that was fleeing the persecution and coming here. And this is all God's plan. And how for over 200 years this nation has, and I've told y'all, the people of Philippines, they thank Americans every time they come over. They thank them for bringing the gospel, to them. And that was God's plan. And He does everything, from the smallest to the greatest. He does it all. I mean, our sign. And how, knew we needed a sign. He made a way, and we got the sign. And how are we going to get this done? And then he moved on Claude, and Claude's son-in-law, and he's run and dug ditches and all that. And then Paul and Connie come this morning for tractor, and he got a nice little tractor, honey. I told him, I said, just go ahead and load it up and take it home, and when I need it, I'd just come and get it. He could keep it till I need it. And I told him I can't see too good out of this eye, and I was trying to weld and not doing too good. And Paul went and got his helmet, and when he got his helmet, he took off and welded up a storm on it and got it. And so, ain't that great? But you say, what's this? That's That's God. I've been praying because, I don't know how to run electric or ditches or hook up stuff or this or that. And he just took care of it all. He does that. Doesn't matter what it is. I get all bent out of shape and wonder, well, what about this? What about that? And I go back over and over about roofs and great day. I really got long-winded tonight. I ain't got nowhere in this. But, he's, do you ever stop and thank him just like this for letting another season come? I know it's going to snow tomorrow, or supposed to, but it's March. It's supposed to do stuff like that. But it's him, the flowers. And ours was a miracle. Miss Pauline's daffodils up and blooming, and me and Claude and Sister Connie and Brother Paul and his tractor and welding and everything else all around down there. And them daffodils just standing up just as pretty as it was when we started. And they probably got holes burning in them there. Everything else from that welder, Brother Paul, but it's God done that. Aren't you glad He's the one that's in charge of doing that? The peepers we've heard them. Don't that just lift your spirits when you hear them? Them little old things, they ain't about big as your thumb or something. They got a mouth like me, but they ain't very big. But don't it just? It does, don't it? It just, that's God. He's done all that for us. He's doing what He's done for Israel, what He's done for Joshua and Moses and all through. Still, same God. New sign, same God. New season, same God. He's the one who brought it. Amen. I'm thankful.